a legend of two wild women in the German woods in Odenwald, a 13th century German castle ruins, and a hurricane in the 1800s in central Germany. So the question you have to be asking yourselves is, what are we doing today? That is some random activities. Well, I'm about to show you, but first we have to hike to these locations. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it's a little cold today. So I'm gonna get going because I need to warm up. So I'll see you at the castle. All right, we're gonna take a quick break here because I wanna get some water and I also wanna tell you about the region. Now today, it is a little bit cold. It's icy. I've only seen 2 other people on the trail, which is a great sign because I think we might get the castle ruins to ourselves, which would be fantastic. Very rare, but fantastic. But where we are is Odenwald. Specifically, we're in Odenwald Kreis. That's a group of villages and towns in the region. And what makes Odenwald so special, or why I love it, is because you have a lot of these villages with their own unique legends, history, and their folktales. So if you're new to the Exploring Author YouTube channel, that is primarily the focus of what I do, is finding these folktales and legends, and then talking about the history behind them as well. This region has a lot of castles, it has a lot of nature, and it has a lot of hiking as well. So it's a beautiful area. I highly recommend if you're in central Germany, south of Frankfurt, check this area out. It's definitely a gem. So, all right, we're gonna keep on going here. I'm gonna grab some water. I'll see you all at the castle. So welcome to Rodenstein Castle ruins. So a little bit of history about the castle. The castle was approximately built in the year 1240 by the brothers Rudolph and Friedrich von Krumbach, which they also called themselves von Rodenstein, hence Rodenstein Castle. Be sure to remember the name Rudolph von Rodenstein. Spoiler alert, you're going to hear it again when we talk about the legend. But first, let's take a nice tour of this beautiful castle ruins. Rodenstein Castle was expanded several times throughout the 13th and 14th centuries. Surprisingly for the era, the destruction of the castle did not occur from fighting. The final resident and descendant of Rudolph and Friedrich died in 1635 of the plague during the 30 Years' War. After this, the castle fell into disrepair until the 19th century. There have been many legends surrounding this family, the castle, and the surrounding area. A famous poet, Werner Bergengruen, even wrote about the area as he was impressed by the legends when he visited. You can walk around the 1 kilometer-long Rodenstein Dichterweg and look at the 8 informational boards discussing the legendary ruins. So today, we're going to focus on one of the legends from this castle, the legend of the 2 wild women. But the legend didn't actually take place in the castle. We still have to hike a little bit further to get to the location. But as a second reminder, you only get 2 reminders. Please remember the name Rudolph von Rodenstein. Alright, I know I keep teasing you that we're going to be talking about a legend soon, and we are, I promise. I'm not just torturing you. We will get there in a moment, but I did want to stop at this one spot along the hike. As you can see, there's snow now, so we are at a higher elevation, about nearly 500 meters or just over 1,640 feet. This spot is really interesting. It's called Rimdidim. Now say that 3 times fast. So what makes Rimdidim special is that a hurricane came through on May 15th, 1898. Yeah, you heard that right. Germany and hurricane in the same sentence. Now back then, after the hurricane, all the trees were uprooted. You could actually see all of the valley below from this mountain peak. Now today, all the trees are regrown, so it's not so spectacular if you don't know the story. It is still beautiful, you just don't get a great view with it. But now that you know the story, if you do happen to come here, you can say, hey, the exploring author taught me that. All right, we are almost there. We're gonna get to this last stop. I'm happy because the hike is now downhill for the rest of the way. So let's get there. Alright, we've made it to where the legend of the two wild women takes place. And as promised, I'm going to tell you a few different versions of the legend of these two wild women. Now, the legend goes that these two wild women lived in a cave somewhere around these two rocks. I believe it's on the other side. It's a little bit dangerous to get to today, so I can't show it to you. But let's get into the real legend of the two wild women. The legend goes that in earlier times, two wild women lived in a cave at the foot of these boulders. They were very well known amongst the locals in the town. As the two were herbalists, they would help all of the good and hard-working people by showing them plants with special healing powers. They would often walk to the edge of town and ask for bread or other items. The farmers who were generous to them found silver spoons in their drawers as a reward the next day. One day, one of the women was captured by a hunter, and the town's residents would hear the other woman shout, "If the farmers knew what the wild white heaths and the wild white selves were good for, they would hoe with silver hoes." Now, as far as I can tell, a wild white heath and a wild white selve are two different types of flowers that grow in the area. Presumably, as they were herbalists, this would mean that they would make herbal medicine from it, and they wanted to be able to share this with the good, hardworking people of the villages. With this herbal medicine, essentially they could sell it and buy silver hoes for their farm fields. Now, I don't know for sure if that's exactly what it means. This is just my interpretation, so leave a comment. Let me know what you think this exactly means, because, quite honestly, the mystery still remains, because the villagers continue to use their iron-made hoes and farm equipment after this happened, or so the legend goes. Now, do you remember the name I told you at the castle a little while ago? The one I said, hey, 2 times. You should remember the name. Well, if you don't, that's okay, I'm going to say it again anyway. Rudolph von Rodenstein. So the second part of this legend involves Rudolph von Rodenstein. And some of this legend takes into account some of the earlier legend that I've already told you. So let's kick it off with the part of the legend about Rudolph von Rodenstein and the two wild women. Old Rudolph von Rodenstein was said to have a love affair with one of the wild women. Rudolph became disinterested, and unbeknownst to him, the love affair resulted in a child, a little boy. One day, a few years later, Rudolph fell asleep by these rocks, and his hat fell off. He woke to the words, "Will you pick up your father's hat?" This caused Rudolph to wake up, see the woman, fall in love again, and he took his son and the wild woman back to his home at Rodenstein Castle. Now, there aren't any historical facts out there that show that the legend of the two wild women or the implication that Rudolph von Rodenstein was involved in any way, shape, or form with these two wild women. But this folktale, along with other legends and folktales, brought us to locations like this, and in future episodes, other locations, which lead us to also learn about the known history of these places. That's why I always say, legends and folktales are a great place to start if you want to learn about the history of these places. Alright, it's getting a bit late. I didn't bring a headlamp today, so I need to kind of hurry back to town and catch my bus back to Frankfurt. If you're new to the channel and you like what you see about the history, the legends, the folktales, definitely subscribe, because we're going to be doing a lot more episodes like this in the future. And of course, all the other things like, comment, share, that's always helpful for the channel. However, it really is going to start getting dark soon, so as always, adventurers, adventure awaits.